This episode is brought to you by Kia's first 3-row all-electric SUV, the Kia EV9, with available all-wheel drive and seating for up to 7 adults, with a 0 to 60 speed that thrills you 1 minute and available reclining lounge seats that unwind you the next. Visit kia.com/EV9 to learn more. Ask your Kia dealer for availability. No system, no matter how advanced, can compensate for all driver error and or driving conditions. Always drive safely.
Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with Cynthia Zhai about finding and fostering a powerful and persuasive leadership voice. Cynthia Zhai, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Sure, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have the opportunity to have a good discussion with you today. You bring with you a lot of really great experience cross-nationally, and so I'm excited to have this discussion, not just as it relates perhaps to the US, where the majority of my listeners happen to be, but I do have listeners across 50 countries, and I know you've traveled extensively, and so I think our discussion should be applicable to many across the world. Today, we're going to be focusing on finding and fostering a powerful and persuasive leadership voice, and I know this is something that you've done a lot of work in the past. As we get started, I just wanted to share Cynthia's bio with the listeners. Cynthia Zhai is a voice coach, professional speaker, and best-selling author. She's also a TEDx speaker. Cynthia has helped clients from 46 countries and across 6 continents with their voices to speak with impact and conviction, engages and inspires people to embrace change and take action. Cynthia has been a professional speaker and coach for the past 18 years, and her engagement spans 5 continents in 18 countries and regions such as the US, Finland, the Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, Argentina, Egypt, Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Macau, mainland China, India, Brunei, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, and the Philippines. And that's awesome. That's so amazing. Cynthia has appeared in USA Discover Your Talent show, Singapore radio program, 938 Live 4 times, Hong Kong radio, and Malaysia business radio station BFM as a guest speaker on the subject of voice. She's a regular guest on podcast shows around the world. And Cynthia has spoken to more than 20,000 audience members across industries from the world's top multinational companies. She's talked at Stanford University, Sophia University, Mercer, Google, Procter & Gamble, various government bodies in different countries. And my goodness, I could go on and on and on. Cynthia, you just have such an incredible background, a rich career in helping others to find their voice and to be able to speak with power and to be able to influence those around them. So thank you for joining the podcast. I'm honored to have you on as a guest today. Anything else you would like to share by way of background or personal context before we launch into the discussion?
Oh, I think it's a period of time where that I was able to and have the opportunities to work with people or work with companies from all over the world. So I think the key is to be open to all kinds of opportunities.
Well, I agree with that. I think being open, embracing the change around us, and opportunity, opens its doors in strange and unique ways that we often can't even expect. And even right now in the midst of a global pandemic, in a global recession, Obviously, there's lots of challenges, lots of struggle, pain, suffering, but there's also lots of opportunities that come out of these types of times of trial. And so, as we are able and to focus on the opportunities and keep our options open, I think that's an excellent way to go. And so you've definitely done that throughout your career. I imagine that's how many of your opportunities have arisen, just by being open, being ready and willing to leverage and take advantage of what's presented to you. Sometimes we chase down opportunities, right? Sometimes we know we have a goal and we want to go accomplish this thing, and so we're going to focus on it. We're going to go towards it. But a lot of times things just happen organically, and sometimes we're prepared for the organic opportunities that arise, and a lot of times we're not. So very good. Well, thank you. As we get started today, I thought first perhaps you could share your perspective on what leaders tend to struggle with the most when you work with clients across the world in all these different countries. And I should say, by the way, that I am so jealous. I love to travel. I do a good amount of travel myself, and I do consulting work internationally, and I do international research. But I haven't traveled as much as you. So I'm jealous and envious, and I'm so glad that we'll be able to have this kind of international flavor to the discussion today. So what do you think about leaders? Like, what do they tend to struggle with the most when you're working with them?
The very first thing is they will tell me that, I want to be more charismatic as a leader, especially when I speak. And so one of the key problems that they had was that they are speaking with a very logical voice, meaning that it's all reasoning, analytical, and it lacks authentic emotion. And of course, it has to do with how our society is conditioning us, which is that we think logic is superior comparing to emotion. So that's why that this is a very common problem where when they're speaking, there is a lack of authentic emotion.
Yeah, and we need to be able to connect with people, right? So it's important to have data to support what you're saying. It's important to have the facts on your side. You can only get away with leveraging, kind of human emotion in and of itself for only so long. So if you don't have substance behind what you're saying, people will see through that. But that's not what you're saying. You're saying, we have that, we have the data, we have the logical reasoning, we have the arguments, we have the support, but instead of just leaning on all of that, which just often doesn't connect with people, it doesn't resonate with people, it goes over their head, whatever. If we can find a way to tap into the emotion of individuals as it connects back to the logical arguments, as it connects back to the evidence, that's where the power will be. Because then we have substance and we have emotional hook. That emotional hook is so key.
That's right. So I couldn't remember who originally said this quote, but this quote goes as, logic makes people think, emotion makes people act. So if you want people to take action, especially for leaders, then you have to speak with authentic emotion.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I have to admit, that's something that I struggle with sometimes. I'm very analytical. I'm a data wonk. I do a lot of research. So I like to think in terms of research questions. I like to think in terms of research-oriented recommendations. I like to talk about the data, and that's important. Don't get me wrong. And I'm glad I do what I do. But, I've seen it happen in organizational settings where there's just a disconnect between what I'm saying, and I have all of the evidence, I have all the arguments on my side, but I just am not able to get that leader to buy in. I'm just not able to convince them, persuade them that going down my path that I'm proposing would be a viable, effective path. And the reason I found when that happens is because I'm just leaning too much on the analytical. I'm leaning too much on the logical and too much on the data, rather than helping frame the arguments in such a way that the executives that I'm working with, or the organizational leaders that I'm working with, that they can feel that emotional hook, that they can feel that connection, and then feel something about what to do moving forward, to generate that buy-in. And that's something I have to remind myself about over and over and over again, because it's not my natural tendency. My natural tendency is to focus primarily on the arguments, on the data. And honestly, my natural tendency is to get a little frustrated with people when they're not willing to acknowledge the evidence, So I say, I just laid out like all of this evidence. It's so obvious to me, and you're not engaging with the evidence at all. You're just making an emotional claim, irrespective of the evidence. And that does frustrate me.
That's right.
But, and it's fair, I suppose, for me to be frustrated, but if I'm trying to be effective and persuasive, then it doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong. What matters is whether or not I connect with my audience.
Yeah, that's right. So that happens to some of my clients as well. So they were saying that, oh, what I'm presenting making a lot of sense, but they're not hearing it. So it's the way you are speaking as well. Are you connecting with their emotional needs? Are you connecting with your voice, which is authentically expressing the emotions as well? So there are two layers. One is in your voice, the way you express your emotion. And the second layer is also that what you're presenting, whether it is fulfilling certain emotional needs of the clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think are some of the quick and simple things that leaders can start doing right away to increase the power and influence and persuasiveness of their voice as a leader?
Yeah. So we can talk about three things. One is, since now we are talking about emotions, the first thing that they can do is to think about the key emotions that we often express in business. Like, for example, one is determination. So determination, firmness, assertiveness, they are all in the same category. And they want to think about how they can express determination. So that's one thing. And the other one is that the caring, which may be challenging to the male leaders, but that is something that they can learn as well, to show that they care. They care about their staff members. They care about their clients. So caring is another emotion that we often use in business. And the third category is to have some fun, which is to build up the curiosity, build up the suspense. So one of the biggest problems, my clients would always say to me, oh, I can't keep their attention. So you can keep their attention if you know how to grab their attention, if you know how to make them curious, if you know how to build suspense. So those were the three things that they can think about in terms of expressing their authentic emotions. And that will be on the emotion side.
Yeah, good. Well, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have when they're considering their voice and how to increase the influence of their voice?
Yeah. So the first thing is that they will be thinking, oh, my voice, the voice that I was born with, I couldn't change it. I have to live with this voice that I'm born with. That is the misconception that people have. The voice that people were born with, it is something that they can change. It is not that they're going to become someone else. For example, some of my clients, they will say that, oh, I like the voice of Morgan Freeman. I like the voice of Sean Connery's. So you don't need to become them, but you can have the quality of their voices. Like their voice is very deep, very full. At the same time, it's authoritative, but also very pleasant to listen to. So those are the qualities that you can develop in yourself as well. And that's the first misconception, which is, oh, I can't change my voice. You can. And then the other one is that they think, when I work on my voice, it is to work on my tonality. And working on the voice is much, much more than tonality. It is to work on who you are and better who you are. So when we work on the voice, we are literally working on optimizing your vibration, because voice is vibration. So we're optimizing your vibrational frequency. And when you work on your voice, change the quality of your voice, you not only sound better, but also you feel better. The outlook of you is much better. So that's what I see in some of my clients. When we were working towards the end of our program, I could see that some of them, they were glowing. So those would be the two biggest misconceptions.
Yeah, well, that's really cool. And maybe I'm wrong, but I imagine that's a lot of what you talk about with clients is about literal voice technique, but also voice in the sense of how I frame things, how I position myself in terms of my connection with those in the room, and authentic, like I think of authentic voice. Like, for example, you mentioned earlier in our discussion today about leaders wanting to be more charismatic, right? Well, first of all, there's no one like correct leadership style. Like, you don't need to be a charismatic leader to be an effective leader. And some people are kind of more naturally charismatic and other people aren't as naturally charismatic. And I'm one of those, right? I'm never going to be a Barack Obama or Michelle Obama type of speaker. They just invoke so much through the voice that they have, and they accomplish so much. And just frankly, I'm never going to get there, I don't think. And I'm not a particularly charismatic person, but that's okay. I can still be effective. I can still effectively communicate with people. I can still effectively share ideas, and I can still hone the quality of my voice, both literally and figuratively, to be able to have more influence on those around me. And I think the danger is if I chase this inauthentic path of like, I decide I'm going to become this like super dynamic, charismatic speaker. I think it's just not going to work. So connecting and tuning, it's not me. Yeah. And so connecting and tuning into who I am, what my strengths are, building upon those strengths, I think is also a really important part as we consider voice.
Yes, that's right. So that's why that when I work with my clients, I'm not just going to give them, okay, this is all everyone is going to develop into. We also discuss with the client that who they are, what kind of personality that they are, and what is the best path for them. So I do have clients that who can develop their authentic emotion, but there are also others that they are either not ready or that's not who they are. So then I like the word that you are saying, which is influence. So there are many different ways we can influence people. Being charismatic is only one of them. There are also other ways that we can influence people. For example, Bill Gates, he is making a big influence right now. And many people, even though there are many conspiracy theories, but I believe that we're all smart people. We know what's right and what's not right. So you see that people turn to him, and also that people want to hear from him because he was able to predict something a few years back, which is happening right now. So that is another type of leader where that people turn to you because they trust you, they see you as the authority, and they know also that you can predict something that's going to help people prevent something in the future. So that's another type of leader who can influence in their own way.
Yeah. Well, and I know you, in your work you talk about authoritative voice and developing those sorts of characteristics, I suspect, again, I'm not quite sure, but I suspect that you don't mean by that like an authoritarian like leader, like we think of like a Mussolini or some of these like classic authoritarian leaders throughout history. That there's so many negative things about that kind of leadership style, but
That's right.
developing an authoritative voice as we lead others, that can serve a purpose. Can you tell us a little bit about what that kind of a voice looks like?
Sure. So some of my clients, when they came to me, they said, oh, I don't want to sound authoritative. I just want to sound confident. So because that's another misconception people have. They think that authority is something that's dominating, that's controlling, that's intimidating. But that's the wrong perception. Authority doesn't mean that. Authority means that you are very grounded in who you are, what you can offer to people, to the world, and everyone sees you as the source of trustworthiness. They trust you, they trust your good intention. So that to me is authority. And people who have that authority, they can speak with an authoritative voice that can influence people, that can make people trust them.
Yeah, and that's something that you don't just do overnight, right? Like that's built on reputation, that's built on relationships, people's history with you. And so that's something that we need to work on continually and sustainably over a long period of time. And over time, we can develop that kind of authoritative voice. And maybe another way of thinking about it is thought leadership. So when you brought up Bill Gates, for example, he's had a substantial amount of thought leadership in different areas, due to his success, but also due to how he's successfully predicted certain things, in terms of being a bit of a futurist, trying to look around the corner, of what the future holds and having some insights that are valuable, and so that thought leadership leads to authoritative voice, so that people do turn to you, but it doesn't happen overnight.
No, because to become that authority, become that thought leader, it is also a process of you working on yourself. Not only just working on your expertise, but also working on yourself, that you believe you have value. You believe that you are important. What you offer is important. So if not, then you're not going to speak with an authoritative voice.
I think that's right. So what would you suggest to people looking to develop their authoritative voice? What are some things they should start doing right now?
Okay. So most of the times I will tell them that we achieve 2 A's. The 2 A's is not only authoritative, but also authentic. And so to do that, the very first thing, we develop the outer voice and the inner voice. The outer voice is the physical mechanism of the voice, including, for example, working on your breathing, working on how you use that breath to project the voice, working on developing more resonance, more vibration, more sound in the body. And that process itself is developing you as well as a person, not only just developing your voice, but also developing you as a person, because it is optimizing your vibration. It is optimizing your vibrational frequency. So when you have developed that physical voice, you will sound and look, feel more confident, more authoritative. And the inner voice is where it will bring you the authenticity. So we need to find out what kind of leader you are, so that we don't have a one-size-fits-all method to all people. So we have, it is today in my workshop, there's someone asking, they said, oh, is it like we're all in the product line, we all come out the same? It's not. So that's where the authenticity come in, because we are going to find out who you are, what is your way of leading, how you influence, so that we can find your best way of becoming the authority.
Yeah, I love that. And it comes just back to, like you said, authenticity and tuning in to our own frequency, like understanding who we are, not trying to be someone we aren't.
Mm.
I think that's really important. And I think a lot of times, um, organizational leaders who are struggling, they spend too much time chasing after what they think are the leadership ideals, or chasing, there's some new, leadership book in popular press that comes out, some new fad.
Yeah,
And they think, okay, this is the key. This is a silver bullet. If I just do this, then everyone
yeah,
will listen to me. Everyone will follow me. And
yes,
that's that's not how leadership works. I mean, and honestly, it's not rocket science. I say that often to people. It's not rocket science. The vast majority of effective leadership isn't about, charisma. It isn't about any particular style, but it's about intentionality. It's about focus. It's about being present with the people you lead and serve. It's about developing authentic relationships and being true to your authentic self.
hmm,
Um, and then that's like the vast majority of it. When you do that, then you can be an effective leader, and then you can improve your leadership capabilities by tacking on these extra skill sets around the periphery. I mean, that's how I
yeah,
view it. And
yes,
but a lot of times people focus, rather than doing the hard work of like what is at the core of being a good leader, they just kind of
yes.
chase these little periphery edges, hoping that that will be their silver bullet. And that's just not the way it works.
Yeah, that's right. So I think that's very common in all kinds of different industries, different areas of improvement. Even for the voice, for example, some of my clients, they'll be saying, oh, I see that Gary Vee is very effective. So many people follows him. I follow him. I want to develop that kind of voice. But then I would say to them, that's not who you are. And we're not going to develop a voice where that there are so many people chasing after. You have to find your own grounding. So it's the same for leadership. It's not that you're going outside of yourself, chasing external, all these different styles. Then you're not centered in who you are. So that's the core of voice. That's the core of leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Cynthia, it has been a real pleasure talking with you today. We could go on and on, but we're about out of time. Before we
Mm-hmm.
part ways today, though, I want to give you the last word, and I want to give you a chance to share with the listeners how they can find out more about you and your work, and get connected with you.
Sure. So since we're talking about getting centered in who you are, I would recommend that an exercise for the listeners. This is also an exercise that I often ask my clients to do, which is to think about, to know who you are, to get centered in being who you are, and ask yourself that what is that one thing you are most proud of. That's the one thing that's about you. So could be, for example, that you were able to turn companies around. It could also be that you received positive feedback from your team members. So think about what is the one thing that you are most proud of yourself. And from that one thing, you can start to find out who you are, what you are good at, so that you get more centered in yourself instead of go outside of yourself and chasing after those shiny objects.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I really encourage my listeners to reach out to Cynthia, find out more about her. Her LinkedIn profile will be in the show notes. Get connected, because there's a lot she could do to help you find out what she's doing. And we can use that exercise that Cynthia just described to start the process as we try to consider our voice, developing our ability to have power in our voice as a leader and to influence those around us. Thanks for everyone. Thanks to everyone for joining us today on the podcast. I hope everyone stays healthy and safe, and that everyone has a wonderful rest of their week, and that everyone finds meaning and purpose at work each and every day. Thank you.
We are excited to announce the launch of Human Capital Innovation's new e-magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine with the mission to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We will be publishing issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. We hope you'll check out our first issue, and please let us know what you think. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week. Check out our new weekly LinkedIn newsletter, Alchemizing Human Capital, exploring industry trends via original research and interviews with executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We look forward to having you join us.